Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
I gotta say, though, because I mean, we've been watching presentations here for the past 1.5 days, and people on the stage look really small, but I don't feel very small here, you know. Luckily, we have, there's two of us.
Yes, to fill the stage, yeah. So my name is Tuomas Manninen, and we come from a unit called Design and Customer Experience, so I'm head of that unit.
Yeah, and I'm Ulla Jones. My title is Design Culture Lead. What I do is I'm responsible for the competence building of our designers, as well as integrating design thinking into the larger organization. So let's see if this works. I was told that the... Yeah,
yes,
perfect.
It works. Yay. Great. So OP is one of the largest financial players in Finland, so we do business in Finland. We have retail banking, wealth management, and insurance, and actually we have a few hospitals also as part of our insurance business. We cover B2B, B2C, and our unit is roughly 80 designers. Around 50 designers are working for OP, and then we have full-time consultants, around roughly 30 consultants working daily for our design. So a quite extensive design team with business designers, service designers, UX designers, content designers, art directors, and so forth. And we are a cooperative bank, so our owners are our customers, which is obviously a quite nice place for a designer to be when the owner is the customer.
Yeah. And so today what we're going to talk to you about is the uncharted territory of strategic design. It's sort of the title, and what the topic is about is that we've been working for the past 9 years, taking the company to a very sort of a strategic level of design. And we all talk about methods and so forth, but at this level, all the sort of gloves come off. There's not really rules. The textbooks give you some examples of how to do it, but it's really, our guess was as good as anyone else's, and we just wanted to share you our story. So what we're going to cover today is our journey to design as strategy. We're also going to explain what that means, because it might be a little ambiguous term. We're going to introduce you to our design maturity framework, or actually not our framework, but the framework that we've been using to measure and monitor our journey. And we're also going to focus a little bit more on how to know that you have arrived, or in our case, how do we know that we have arrived at this level.
So you might know this Danish Design Center's Design Ladder model, which we've been using to kind of evaluate and measure the maturity of the design inside your organization. So obviously, all the maturity models are like suggesting to go to the highest maturity, obviously. So obviously, this framework means also that you should be aiming for the highest step, so step 4 in this model. So. And the reason in this framework to go to the highest step is that the multiple research is saying that the design-intensive organizations are companies are most valuable companies. We all know the design value index. We know that there is several studies, for example, on Fortune 500 companies, where the result is that the ones that are design-intensive are the ones that are raising higher or faster on that list than non-design intensive organizations. So, and then there are researches on share value, where the design intensive companies grows their share value faster than non-design intensive organizations. So that's kind of built into this framework, like justifying that you should be aiming for the highest step on this model to step 4. And that's why obviously we have been using this framework to measure where we are and also set the target to our design design organization and design doing that, you know, we should be aiming there, and what does it mean for us. So that's the framework that we have been using for looking at the maturity.
And it's important to add to that one that a company doesn't really move on these steps as a monolith. Some designers within our organization still might feel that they're doing work at the step 2, but when we monitor the company as a whole, we can safely say that a lot of our actions and what we've done in the company have taken us to the level where design is part of strategy. Designers are working at the sort of at integrated level with everyone else in the company. Also, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the model, but we're going to combining it with our experiences, so don't worry, it's not going to be a boring theory talk at all. What we've also done is that every step we've divided into 3 areas: design doing, design people, and design culture. And for the first 3 steps, we're going to highlight some of the key elements on the journey, and then we're going to focus a little bit more on the step 4, which is really the beef of the story, right?
So if we look at the step 1, so non-design is this, we roughly see that this is before 2011 in our company. So designers didn't exist in the company. Obviously,
yeah, exactly. Obviously, design was happening at the time.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah.
And we were launching services without design. Obviously, services had some type of a design, but it was not done by the design. And if you look at the example, for example, this is our online bank. So feast your eyes. This is how it looked like about 20 years ago. So 1996, we launched actually the second online bank in Europe and 4th in the world. So we were in a kind of head of this whole digital transformation on the financial industry. But however, these services were done by experts with no design background or just a little design background, and innovation was obviously happening, as this was an innovative service at that point, but it was done by the expert, not by design methodology or kind of utilizing the customer understanding for the innovation. All right, if we then go to the step number 2, and this is really what we say that it's happening on 2011. Why that year is because that was the year when we formed our development center and the first designers were hired. It was a strategic decision to build a development center 600 kilometers out from our head office to make sure that we build a culture which is not having that kind of a mental legacy which the kind of head office had. So we formed a development center in Oulu, which
there was a curious story about, if you remember the company, the little mobile phone company Nokia.
Yeah. That used to be also 2011, not anymore so much. So, and that was actually a time when Nokia was laying off people in Oulu, and they were handpicking mobile developers, designers, UX designers, service designers for our development center, and that's where the actual kind of design work started in our company.
Yeah, and again, one can't underline enough the fact that it was important that the development center was 600 kilometers away from the headquarters, just because banking industry in general is very risk averse and very sort of a system and process focused. So they had a sort of a more of a freedom to work separate from the headquarters. Elsewhere in the company around that time, design was starting to happen, but it was very sort of a consultant-driven, and it was commissioned by managers who had a personal interest in service design and in human-centered design in general. And it is worth mentioning that during that time, we did ambitious projects, the OP mobile app that won Red Dot Award. There was a service design project that won national awards. So there was definitely sort of an uncompromising approach to design, but it was happening in isolated pockets, both in the headquarters, but more in the development center in Oulu.
Yeah, and then we started realizing and analyzing that actually our designers, as Ulla mentioned, is really at the end of the development process. So we kind of giving the lipstick to the big pig, as we say. But like there were a lot of projects utilizing design, but all big decisions were done beforehand. So all the concepts, big concepts, we bought from the agencies and consultants, and then when we actually started producing those concepts, our internal designers stepped in. And in 2015, we started convincing the top management that we also, as we had really good designers at the end of the process, we need to have similar competence in-house also at the beginning of the process. And we started hiring first business designers and more strategic or conceptual service designers 2015, at the end of 2015. Also, we started to calculate what we call a service design percentage, which was a measurement of how many projects were utilizing design methodology and customer-centric methodology from the ideation to the production and to the launch. 2015, in January 2015, only 1 out of 10 projects were utilizing design from start to end. But obviously, you get what you measure, so at the end of the year, it was already 1/3 of the projects were utilizing design. And then 2016, we got that percentage to our top management scorecard. And at that time, we got business designers in, and also the measurement on the scorecard. And at the end of 2016, we already had 80%, so 4 out of 5 projects utilizing design from start to an end.
Yeah. And so at that time, all projects were sort of considered good projects. What that means is that a lot of the projects, we didn't really put much of a thought into whether it was worth our time to take part in these projects, and we didn't measure the impact. It was more like, well, yay, we've been asked to be part of a project, let's go and let's do it. And also, we didn't have much of a say what landed on our table, also from a point of view of that whether it had a customer benefit when they had initially thought of starting a project. It's worth mentioning also that around the time, if you look at the Danish Design Center model, we were part of the development process. And from the model's point of view, we were making a progress, we were on a right path, but that's when it hit to us that there was, at the time, there was about 25 of us working in a same unit, and later on there was some add-ons, as Tuomas said. Nowadays there's 80 of us. But it hit us that at that point we needed to focus more on quality instead of quantity. So here we are at the design as strategy stage. Those were like the highlights of the previous steps, but at this level, it was going to be about basically, what was I supposed to say? Do you remember?
Well, I think one thing from quantity to quality is the metrics part of it. Yeah. So where on the step 3, where we're measuring this service design percentage, which was basically how many projects we were utilizing and was using design methodology. And as Ulla said, all projects were good projects, so we were doing anything and everything. But when stepping it here, we started focusing on quality, and then you need to change the metric, because our service design percentage was a quantity metric, right? Now, when we are stepping on the kind of design as a strategy, where we start focusing on the quality, you need to change also the metrics. Yeah. And what we did there also is that we studied the model obviously to see that, okay, what does this mean in kind of concrete manner? And we found out that if your company organization is on this step, so that as a design as a strategy. It means that every single person in the company thinks and breathes and design methodology or design thinking. So you can't really isolate the design part of the process if everybody is actually doing design. So we changed the focus from metrics, from quantity metrics to quality metrics, from external metrics to internal metrics. So now we have three types of a metric looking at the design value. One is what we call a kind of innovation metric, saying that how much our organizational culture changes on an innovation culture. So how do we change from being product-centric to customer-centric? It's an internal questionnaire which we do 2 times a year. Then we have all the projects that we are in. We ask the kind of the project satisfaction in a way, asking that, did you learn something new? Did you get new ideas using design methods? Would you recommend these methods to your colleague? So we can see kind of an internal NPS to our work. And then third, which is a key metric to our development efficiency, is what we call a feature breakthrough time. So as a company, when we develop new products or services and it has a feature, we have a metric which calculates how much time we spend on from the idea to the launch. And we can see that those teams which are design driven, the feature breakthrough time is much shorter than the ones that are not so design-driven teams. Yeah. So that's also a very important metric for us.
Yeah, and now I've recovered and remember that I was just supposed to go through and just remind you guys and so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the design doing, design people and design culture in a little bit sort of a more in-depth way, and also again sort of point out that while we consider being on this level, there might be little sort of pockets within our company who are still at the sort of lower steps of the model. But to the...
And then, yeah, on the kind of the design doing side is that, for example, a business designer role, we've been iterating it. I think we are on a 4th round as we speak, because there has been a really like a learning curve for us bringing a business design role in the company and kind of understanding what that actually is, because it's fairly new role. It's totally new role on our organization. So we first started focusing on the R&D unit, making sure that our R&D is customer driven and so forth. But what we learned that's very much on the step 3 kind of focus, where you are making sure that you are part of the process. But when you are in a design as a strategy, we changed the focus on actually talking to our business management and business decision makers and the business leadership team. So we are not anymore so much, obviously we are very much part of the R&D process, but kind of the design talk and the impact, what we try to do is now focusing on the business management.
Yeah, then we have the design project manager, which is another sort of example of the new kind of roles. So perhaps we'll actually jump to the sort of a design people, and to mention that one as well, is that my title, design culture lead, design project manager, business designer, and so forth. There are all these different titles that sort of indicate that we've had to really sort of specialize our sort of a design team and the different parts of the design process where different designers are working at. And there was, I mean, a few years ago, as Tuomas mentioned, we're on our 4th iteration on the role of the business designers. And we're just, by sharing that, we're just saying that, you know, what works for us might not work for you, but at the same time, don't get discouraged if the first iteration doesn't work out. It's the same way as in any design process. You need to try out something, have courage, and see how it works, and then alter it.
And I just want to add to that, you know, we have actually, I calculate, we have 7 different design titles in the company, which have been working when you try to communicate that it's not only about visual design, that actually there are services or concepts to be designed, there are business to be designed. So those titles are was important for us to get to the right tables and get the discussion in a right level. Yeah. However, now we are in a situation which kind of starts turning back to us, and we are actually discussing as we speak that we might want to go back to kind of very generic designer title and then just, add command and then designs command, business design command, UX and so on. So that actually we've been making a bit too complex throughout the titles, but we try to maybe simplify that.
Yeah, but while we've been talking about designers, the title on the slide is design is not only for designers. What that means is that the role of a designer at this level becomes more of a coach. It's written in everyone's title, job title, that they have to also integrate design thinking into their stakeholder group and make them understand the benefits of customer-centric design. And at the step 4, I wanted to talk a little bit about the design culture, because design culture is also a hugely important topic in building the company's overall understanding of the benefits of bringing customers into the center of development. And we've done, and I sort of thought that through 5 examples, I would sort of share a little bit what we've been doing. The first one is really, the reason to build culture is to keep our designers motivated. One of the things about designers is that they're super enthusiastic about taking on projects, taking on challenges, challenging the status quo. But there's also a challenge of them burning out fairly easily because of the workload. So in a way, we need to help them streamline their processes, also create a North Star that we know that we're focusing on the right things. And so we've been running these design days, which is a company-wide event where anyone can sign up, and they usually sell out about in 7 minutes and 150 seats, so to 250 seats. There are conferences like this where we first give a little bit of theory and then introduce some sort of fun, not activities, but more of a method for them to take further in their work. We've also been working a lot on sort of PR, both internal and external. And that also sort of motivates us that there's a buzz around us, but it's also, it comes back to us with good questions. And right today we launched a charity project where our designers get to donate a day of their time into solving a more of a sort of common problem in the Finnish society. Of course, we need to have design fundamentals in place, design DNA, design systems. It's, again, streamlining their work, and that is a hugely important sort of a cultural fact as well. And then we also do these sort of learning excursions, talk with our fellow designers in conferences, but also in these learning journeys. We actually visit in-house designers in Silicon Valley, London, Berlin. We've done trips. Might want to visit you guys at some point, so come and talk to us afterwards. Yeah. So it's hugely important to see in what ways you can support the design projects that are taking place with sort of a design culture efforts.
So kind of summarizing the journey is that, well, we started from 1996, so you might start it from 100 years back because we are over 100 year old. But let's start from the day we launched the web service. So that was the step 1 where we didn't really have designers. Then, as mentioned, 2011 we had the development center with first designers hired. 2015 we hired designers for the early part of the project, so we got the business designers in, and we started having the service design percentage and up to 80 at the end of 2016. And then we feel that we are now starting to take steps on the step 4. Once again, we want to remind that it's not something that we move as a monolith. We have single designers working in a single project where they feel that they are in the step number 2 or even step number 1. And
the step number 4 isn't like a solid plateau. Exactly. It's a winding road with a lot of little steps and so forth. So we're just sort of like barely on it, but we wanted to share our journey because it might inspire you guys. Another way of looking at our journey is through those design days that we've been running for the past 3 years. We ran our 6th in the spring, You can find them on YouTube. Just type OP, and they should all sort of show up. There's a playlist of OP design. The topics of those design days, the first one was, what is service design, 3 years ago. It was, for us, the need to educate our internal clients. The next one was, why invest in service design? Then we went on a little bit sort of a bolder route and took data-driven design. Then we had design is a mindset. Then we had a human and a machine theme. And the most recent one was called Anything Can Be Designed. All right, so we're at the very end. We wanted to sort of give you a little takeaways from the step 4. And just as said earlier, it's not a sort of a plateau where you are and you can just rest on your laurels. It is a winding road, winding path. But what's important is that the metrics change. They become, like we're looking at different external metrics to looking at what works for us in our company culture. Designer is no longer just a member of a project team, but designer is also a coach. And design brings business value, not just usability value, or design is not only just the methods that are used within a process. But it's also important to mention that design is only done collaboratively. That means that we cannot leave our designers all by themselves and to solve all the problems of a design unit. There's always a team to join. Again, part of just taking care of our designers and their well-being. And the fifth one is that the hunt for the unicorns ends here. This idea of this sort of like uomo universale type of a person who can do everything from strategy to UX, that just doesn't exist in this scale. We need a team of experts and specialists. It's about craft at this point and appreciating that a good team is formed from people who have different crafts that bring together a dream team.
We don't want to stop on the step 4. Actually, this model is from 2003, so it's fairly old model. And we feel that many companies are taking steps also on the 4th step. So we feel that this model should be kind of evolved and developed further. Our suggestion is that the 5th step would be design as a culture. We feel that there's a lot of design discussion is around methods, which is actually a step 3 thing, that you talk about how to do stuff inside a R&D process, and kind of the methods are the ones that designers want to discuss and share, but we feel that we should be kind of changing it to more like a kind of a design ethos and the craftsmanship. For example, the Nordic design ethos is simplicity and functionality. We should be talking about that, how we embed that to every single product or service that we define, not discussing about are we doing design sprints or what method we are using to do the design. We feel that kind of we should move from human-centered design to life-centric design. Design has more to offer than the actual kind of what is seen, so we can actually change the society, and as Ulla mentioned, we are now today launching that any of the like NGOs can now apply to us for utilize our 50 designers to solve some kind of a society problem or challenge in Finland. So we are kind of donating our expertise, and inquiry starts to be kind of a general approach. So we have kids in second and third grade, and they are using already design thinking or design methodology in school. So that we feel that that's so kind of starts to be so general approach that we actually start talking about design as a culture.
Yeah, we wouldn't mind that in 20 years' time 30 years' time when we retire, it's the whole culture is about design thinking, human centricity, and so forth. Yeah.
So we thank you for your interest, your time. Please contact us. We're happy to share the thoughts and learn more from you guys. So connect, face-to-face, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever works for you. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.